No more Waymo. No more Waymo. No more Waymo.
We're in front of the Cruise offices, one of their depots in San Francisco, 530 10th Street. My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with Workweek and United Front Committee for a Labor Party. So we're here today to demand that these Robo Taxis be immediately removed from the streets of San Francisco. We think they're a threat to the health and safety of the people of San Francisco, and also we believe that the California Public Utility Commission and Department of Motor Vehicles have basically abandoned their responsibilities. They basically said that this company, Cruise and Waymo, can regulate themselves. Self-regulation. And we had this morning Senator Scott Wiener on KPFA talking about mindful development.
I support autonomous vehicles. I do want to make sure that we're being mindful of these safety and workforce issues because they are very, very real, and we should not be winging it. Clearly there have been some issues that need to be resolved because that kind of stuff is not okay. But let's also be crystal clear. We don't see people posting videos of all the time when cars and drivers are blocking and obstructing operational and safety issues with autonomous vehicles that need to be addressed in a very intentional way. But there's a lot of cherry picking going on here because there is an enormous amount of obstructive and dangerous driving happening by the people.
Mindful development. You don't have mindful development when you have these companies regulating themselves. That's not mindful development. But that's exactly what these commissions, the California Public Utility Commission and Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, last week you had two wrecks on the same night. You had a Waymo run into a fire truck. You had a wreck on 26th and Mission, a serious wreck. And you have a situation in San Francisco where these vehicles are every day, every hour of the day, violating the vehicular code. What does that mean? It means, for example, when a pedestrian is ready to cross a street, you have pedestrian right-of-way, the cars are incapable of actually recognizing that because you have to look at somebody's face to see whether they're going to cross at a sidewalk. So the question of pedestrian right-of-way is being violated every time these cars are on the road. How can the California Public Utility Commission and the DMV allow this? Are we the guinea pigs of these companies, testing companies? Hell no. Hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no. So what you have, and this is an issue going on with the writers and the actors and actresses, you have the introduction of artificial intelligence, AI, without looking at the effect of it. In the case of the actors and actresses and writers, they're saying they're going to destroy these industries. They're going to replace these workers with AI. In the case of the drivers in San Francisco, the thousands of drivers of the taxis, they're going to destroy the taxi industry. Who gave them the right to destroy the taxi industry in San Francisco? Who do they represent? Who the hell do they represent? This is unbridled capitalism is what we're talking about. Unbridled anarchy in the streets of San Francisco. And somebody's going to get killed. Somebody's going to get killed because these cars are going to block an emergency vehicle. Somebody's going to die because of the reckless anarchy that the California Public Utility Commission and DMV allows. And we believe there should be criminal liability. It's criminal negligence for these agencies, which are regulatory agencies, to allow these cars on the road of San Francisco. And every other city in this country is threatened. This is not just about San Francisco. This is about the entire country and the entire world because they want to get rid of drivers. They want to get rid of truck drivers. They want to get rid of delivery drivers. So we're talking about an attack on the working class. The California Public Utilities Commission could give a damn that thousands of workers lose their jobs because who do they represent? Who do they really represent? They represent these tech billionaires. They represent Google. They represent these major corporations. That's what they're all about. And the unions, California AFL-CIO, the SEIU, State Council, the Teamsters, are all against the allowing of these Robo Taxis into San Francisco. And we're saying abominable that they're testing their technology right on the people of San Francisco. We are not going to be the guinea pigs. And as I said, If somebody is killed or seriously injured, we want criminal prosecution. We want criminal prosecution of these officials who allowed this, because they know that they're testing their technology on the people of San Francisco. They know that. In fact, the DMV said they have to cut the number of cruise cars 50% because they have to see if they can improve their technology. Why should we be the victims of them trying to improve their technology? It is insane, and it's out of control, and that's why we're having this press conference today. And the other thing is that the DMV, we are going to look into getting an injunction, because the DMV has admitted that they're not testing this technology. The companies are testing it. They have a responsibility to enforce the vehicle code in California and San Francisco. It's not the job of these companies to enforce it. It's the DMV. So they've abandoned their responsibility to enforce the code. If you're abandoning your responsibility, you should be removed from office. The director of the DMV should be removed from office, and the CPUC, who are controlled by the tech companies, should be an elected California Public Utility Commission. At the top of this is Gavin Newsom, who took $10 million from Google in 2020. Gavin Newsom is leading this. Gavin Newsom loves Elon Musk and autopilot, which is killing people in California. Gavin Newsom loves these 10 companies, and they're funding Gavin Newsom. So this corruption in the Democratic Party is one of the reasons these regulatory agencies are not doing their job. They're not doing their job because the politicians are saying, let it rip. Let the anarchy rip, and let the people of San Francisco be guinea pigs to the introduction of this technology. So our next speaker is going to be Mark Gruber.
Mark Gruber, board member of the San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance, and I happen to live in the East Bay. I work here in San Francisco as a driver for Green Cab. Live in the East Bay, and this is my hometown newspaper, the East Bay Times, this morning. CPUC vote lets Waymo crews run amok in San Francisco. Wow. This is a strong editorial calling for these cars to be taken off the street. It's particularly harsh about John Reynolds, one of the commissioners who voted to allow these vehicles to do this commercial service 24/7 all over town with unlimited numbers, and Reynolds happened to be the top lawyer for Cruz before he joined the commission. So what Reynolds said, and Reynolds' vote at that meeting was the crucial vote. There were only 4 commissioners present, so they needed 3 votes to pass this. And one of the commissioners, Commissioner Sharoma, who was the lead commissioner in this, asked for it to be put off for 3 months so they could do an assessment of what was happening with these vehicles. Reynolds gave this his vote, and he said, well, I recused myself for a year, as if, that cured everything. So you recuse yourself for 365 days, and on the 366th, you're suddenly good to go? Does that make any sense? No. This is tainted by his vote. It's tainted by what the commission has done here.
This is kleptocracy. This ain't no democracy.
So what happened after that vote? You've read about, you've heard about, you've seen these various incidents. Steve mentioned a couple of them. What about the cruise car that ended up in wet concrete? Did you hear about that one? Yeah. What about the cruise that went up onto the curb outside the ballpark during a Giants game? And then, of course, there was the crash with the fire truck, one of only 60-plus incidents that have happened with first responders. The CPUC says it's not our problem. They said that's in the DMV's ballpark. And what has the DMV done? Well, in the first place, as Steve was saying, they've allowed these companies to self-certify. They don't do any road testing. They don't do any. They don't take a look at the software that they're using. Now they've taken this step of taking half the cruise cars off the street. So we're only going to have half the number of incidents, and apparently that to them is okay. So, let's say a car manufacturer finds out that there's a safety defect with one of their vehicles. Do they recall half of them? I mean, come on. What's going on here? So, you know that there is no mechanism for ticketing these vehicles now under state law. You can't ticket them. But I do have a suggestion. So every time there is a documented instance of one of these vehicles doing something unsafe, you know, blocking traffic, stopping in the middle of a street, tying up firefighters, going through police tape, all the stuff that they're doing on a regular basis. Every time that happens, if it is witnessed by law enforcement, captured on video, seen by multiple witnesses, that vehicle should get 1 point. Just like any motorist, get a point on your license. 3 points and you're out. And pretty soon we'll be seeing fewer and fewer of these cars on the street, and eventually, probably none at all. And then we can all breathe a sigh of relief. So let's put the brakes on Waymo and Cruise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And as Mark pointed out, there's really a double standard here, that these companies and their cars are not following the law. And these agencies know that they're not following the law. Yet they're allowing them to operate in the city and county of San Francisco. So I call that a violation of the law. I call that basically the takeover of these agencies, including the San Francisco Police Department, by these companies. Because basically what we're saying is these cars should be impounded. They don't belong in the streets. They don't have to wait for the CPUC. They don't have to wait for the DMV. They have to operate under the vehicular code, which is if a car stops in the middle of the road and blocks traffic and nobody's in the car, you impound the car. Why don't they impound the cars? That's what we're asking here. And the reason is Mayor London Breed said she welcomed the decision of the CPUC. Imagine that. The mayor of San Francisco saying she welcomed the decision of the CPUC, which says that these cars can regulate themselves. This is a basic violation of the law. It's basically capitulating to the billionaire tech companies and saying to hell with the people of San Francisco and the economic and environmental development. The other point I want to make is privatization. They're privatizing the transit. Uber and Lyft help privatize it. We cannot have thousands of cars in San Francisco, additional cars, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Our next speaker is Edward Escobar with Alliance of Independent Workers.
My name is Edward Escobar. I'm the founder of the Alliance for Independent Workers, the hashtag Drivers Unite movement. I am a driver. I've been a driver since 2014, black car, but I've also driven all these apps that you see, the Uber, Lyft, so on and so forth. So I've seen the type of corporate exploitation, extreme corporate exploitation of workers, and I've seen it only get worse. What's happening is right now the CPUC listens to Waymo, Cruise, these corporate entities, and we're talking about Google and General Motors. They listen to them because they're taking the pages from the playbook of Uber, how Uber rode roughshod over society. They disrupted transportation, and they were allowed to because they contribute to the public campaigns, the political campaigns of these folks that are in offices. So everyone is basically in bed with each other except for representation of the people. What is wrong with that? Because we vote these people in office, it's as representation democracy, representative democracy, it's not happening. And so they try to cart in a bunch of disabled folks and blind people and they tell them, hey, it's going to help you. But it can't help you if the vehicles are picking you up in places that you don't even know where it's at because they don't pick you up precisely where you're supposed to be picked up. Then they don't drop you off where you're supposed to be dropped off. On top of that, they're picking up and dropping off in the center of the street, not alongside the curb. Taxi, Uber, Lyft, they're required to let you off at the curb. So that's a major problem. But beyond that, what is the ethical dilemma when a vehicle that has no person in it, it has to decide between, in a potential accident situation, has to decide between hitting an animal, hitting a person, hitting another car? Who's going to make that ethical decision that's going to cost a life. Then beyond that, the liability. Who's going to be sued? Who's going to go to jail? Because I've been on the streets as a driver and I've seen how poorly they drive. They drive worse than drunk driving student drivers. Even them, they know better. You don't stop in the middle of the street, and yet they do. You honk at them, it doesn't matter. So you have to find yourself a way and around them, which can cause an accident in and of itself. But also, let's look at the cyber hacking potential here, the cyber terrorism. How about the fact, with all the crime that's happening right now that you see in the Bay Area, a person who's a robber, a rapist, a murderer, they could simply put a cone on top of the vehicle, on the hood, and stop that vehicle and attack that person. Now, if it was a human driver, a taxi driver, a Uber, Lyft driver, they would know to escape the scene right away. They would know to anticipate that something's not right and they need to escape the scene right away. These do not have a brain. They have a technological brain, but it's not connected with humanity. There's such a huge detachment. Now let's talk about one other issue too that people seem not to think about. The fact that our cell phones are classified by the World Health Organization as a low-powered microwave. So imagine the EMFs, the electrical magnetic frequencies that are present in these vehicles with these passengers. Nobody's talking about that. And there's a whole lot more. How about the permanent displacement of labor? Wow, not by the thousands. Right now, who's on the chopping block? Taxi, Uber, Lyft. Let's talk about public transportation, because this is the privatization of public transportation is what we're seeing. So who's going to be affected? Seniors, immigrants, low income, minorities. What's going to happen to these folks? Students. They can't afford to have their own private car. So we need to really take a look at this and see who the players are and say no to Robo Taxis. Put the brakes on it right now. No to Robo Taxis. 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 I'm Edward Escobar, Drivers Unite, Alliance for Independent Workers. Thank you.
Earthquake. There was a big earthquake in 1906 in San Francisco. Now, what we learned, not from the California Public Utility Commission and not from the CPUC, what we learned is that these cruise cars, these autonomous vehicles, are dependent on cell usage. In other words, these cars only operate through the cell system. Now, what's going to happen in an earthquake in San Francisco? In an earthquake in San Francisco, everybody's going to be on their phone. Everybody. Because when an earthquake happens, a terrific example of the nightmare scenario which we're facing in San Francisco. And this is, the kind of nightmarish conditions. It's Disney Dystopia is what it is. And in 1906, there was an earthquake. People in San Francisco know that when you have an earthquake, the first thing that happens is everybody's calling up somebody. How were you affected? How were you affected? On their cell phones. So what is that going to mean in San Francisco if there's an earthquake? That means that all these cruise cars and all these Waymo cars are going to be shut down because they can't use their cells. And what has the CPUC and the DMV done about that? Nothing. We know now that the CPUC and the DMV don't give a damn if all the cars are shut down because they know that's what happens. That's what happened in North Beach when 10 cruise cars shut down. They said that the Overland's Festival brought too many tourists into San Francisco and they were all using their cell phones. That's what they admitted. So they know that these cars are dependent on cells. And in an earthquake, in a major emergency, you're going to have a lot of dead robo cars in San Francisco blocking highways, blocking roads. You're going to have people die as a result of this. Now, what we're talking about is criminal. Because if these officials of the DMV and the CPUC, they already know this now as a result of what's already happened. Fortunately, nobody has died or been seriously injured. If they already know that this is what happens when there's cell overload and they're continuing to allow these vehicles to operate, then they're criminally liable. They're criminally negligent. You cannot put the people in danger. That's a basic tenet. You cannot put people in danger, and that's exactly what they're doing because they represent the tech companies. They're not representing the people of San Francisco. So we're demanding immediately that all these robo-taxis be shut down. If they go on the street, they be impounded, and that the politicians, the Police Department Act, and the Mayor London Breed, and the Governor Gavin Newsom be held personally accountable. If there's a death or a serious injury in San Francisco, these officials need to be prosecuted criminally because they know this is what happens. They know that this technology, AI, has not been developed. As I said earlier, pedestrian right-of-way is the law in California. Pedestrians have the right-of-way, yet these vehicles cannot tell whether somebody's going to cross a sidewalk. So if somebody is standing on the sidewalk over there talking with a friend and not going to cross, a driver would recognize that and move on. These vehicles can't. So what happens? If somebody's on the corner over there talking, the vehicles go right by. And they only stop if somebody's in the street. That's a violation of the law. That's a threat to health and safety, and we have to stop it. Our next speaker is Robin Crotch, and she is with Save Muni. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, press, for being here. We really appreciate this. This is such an important issue for all of us because any of us could be affected by something that happens with those cars. I thought about the issues that I want to talk about today, and I decided on the one that I'm holding for my sign. What I'm saying is that no robo-car could pass a driving test the way they behave. This would be an F. They would not get their license. And I'm wondering why the DMV has allowed this in the first place when they have very strict rules about how all of us are to pass driving tests. So these cars stall at any time, they stop at any time. I've seen them block intersections. I actually seen them block an intersection after a fire truck crossed the road, and then instead of proceeding on, that car went and stopped in the bus stop. That's not allowed. Again, another violation of the driving rules. So let me see if there's anything else I want to say here. Yes, the main thing is they're also blocking emergency vehicles. We've heard that they're crossing police crime tape, which is pretty serious. Also, the fire truck that hit the car last week because it had stalled. This is not going to work for our police, for our fire, for our emergency, and they need to get on the ball, and they also need to be stopping these cars. I'm with Save Muni. We're an activist transportation group. We have speakers once a month on Zooms. On the third Monday from 5:30 to 7:30, our site, savemuni.org, if anybody would like to come. We did discuss the robocars at our meeting this week, and we have very interesting topics every Monday on the third Monday about transportation, and then we take action. So we are one of the activist groups in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And another thing about the politicians, Scott Wiener, Senator Scott Wiener in San Francisco, who's for mindful development of technology and AI, but would not call for them to be shut down. He says he wants to raise the fares of drivers, or now he dropped that bill, crossing the Bay Bridge. You know, that's where he's coming from. Raise it on working people. How about the companies that benefit from public transit? How about making them pay the billionaires that benefit from public transit? He's not interested. He wants the working people, the taxpayer, to pay for it. And what we're saying is that actually this is a public transit issue. These cars threaten public transit. They take more people out of public transit for private companies' profits. Our next speaker is Brad Weidmeyer. He was a member of SEIU. He's a healthcare worker, and he's for a Labor Party here in San Francisco. Welcome, Brad.
Francisco Chronicle today reported, in addition to all the other disruptions, that during the Outside Lands event at 34th and Judah, a autonomous vehicle stopped right in the middle of the street. You know, and supposedly we're told that these vehicles, if they're not in touch with their central information, that they're supposed to automatically go to the side of the curb. Well, this vehicle was there for 45 minutes, causing a major jam up and blocking the N Judah, delaying it. So they're not even like giving us their information, and our regulators don't have any information. So if they're not opening their books, not just to the select stuff that looks good, but the total stuff. You know, and we had, in my neighborhood, near City Hall, an accident that the fire chief warned about was coming. Because these vehicles, these autonomous vehicles, do not have acoustic or auditory sensors. So they can't even hear someone honk. They cannot hear someone say, watch out. And they cannot hear emergency vehicle sirens. So they need to be off the street right now. This is a dangerous thing. And the fire chief, in her testimony, Janine Nicholson, said, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen. And she wasn't the only city worker. Other people in the MTA spoke up, risking their jobs. But what about jobs? You know, they're taking money in now. And we need to have a tax, a Robo Taxi tax, that will fund the social dislocation of workers. Every dollar needs to have a percentage going into that fund right now. They're taking money, and they're not going to be providing for the dislocated and the unemployed workers, and we do not need any more people on the streets. So it's very important that we raise these issues, and that's one of the reasons why I'm with a Workers' Party club, the Workers' Party Club San Francisco, because the corruption, you know, the CPUC is trying to do to the streets of San Francisco what they did to wildfires when they've allowed, and they were the oversight to the utilities, and they allowed them to ease up on the right-of-way maintenance. And it happened to coalesce with a really dry, hot season, and we saw what happened to Paradise. Well, that's what we have coming for us in San Francisco. We have this catastrophe coming because they are not prepared. There is no preparation for a crisis. These cars are going to be blocking emergency response, and we need to have some answers, and we need a regulatory system that's not just a crony, corrupt system that's appointed by the insiders of the two capital parties. That's why I think we need a Workers' Party, and I hope you'll join me at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the root of this, of course, is capitalism. That's what we're talking about. That's what's driving AI. That's why billionaires are spending billions of dollars on this technology. It's not about helping people. You know, when computers first were developed in the 60s, they told people in this country, it's going to be wonderful. They're going to do all the menial jobs, and you can have more time on your own to develop and to be free and to improve your circumstances, do what you want to do. Instead, the computer's actually been used by the capitalists to tether people, so gig work for further exploitation. Workers are working 24 hours a day. They're on their cell phones, waiting for a job. This technology is being used now to threaten the jobs of 350 million workers. That's what Goldman Sachs says. 350 million workers may lose their jobs as a result of AI. And San Francisco is ground central of AI. The mayor says, come in and do what you want. Let it rip. That's the mayor of San Francisco. Let it rip. Gavin Newsom, let it rip with Elon Musk. Our next speaker is Ricardo Ortiz. He's with the United Front Committee for Labor Party. Welcome, Ricardo.
I'll do some faint advertising. Thank you very much. Most of what has been said by people that preceded me, you know, is making the point that we are looking for. So we gotta understand that artificial intelligence in general is being used, and it will be used as an attack to the against the working class, like the previous speaker said. And one of these proponents of AI, one of the billionaires members of the ruling class, Mark Zuckerberg, he has said that he hopes that AI at one point will even eliminate jobs such as teachers. Could you imagine being your children being taught by some automatic program designed by the ruling class? Definitely, I wouldn't want that to happen. So, in regard to the Robo Taxis, we have seen all the problems that they have created. Putting people at danger, creating accidents. What could you imagine if this thing is exported to areas in the world that there are natural phenomena like tornadoes or tropical storms and stuff like that? It will be disastrous. Just like somebody was saying about the earthquakes. If you have all this amount of vehicles ramping around an area where has the tendency of tornadoes or other phenomena like that happen, it will be catastrophe for the working class, for the habitants of that area. If this is so secure and this is so safe, do you wonder why they are not using Robo tanks in their imperialist armies? They don't do that because they know it's not safe. They risk themselves to be destroyed by their own so-called AI. You gotta wonder. So what do they want to do really? They want to implement this in, as experiments in civilians populations to put at risk workers and drive people out of jobs. We have seen that homeless and jobless people, their numbers are growing up in the United States and elsewhere. And it is because of this, partially. They do want to have the ruling class to use this AI machineries and equipment to serve them. And what is in storage for us? To die in the streets. And that's what we have to say. Shut it down!
Shut it down!
Shut it down!
Shut it down!
Shut it down! Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next speaker is representing people who want to have a civilized land use in San Francisco. Ozzie Rohn is with the San Francisco Land Use Coalition. Welcome, Ozzie.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you for organizing this rally. It was something that we should have done months ago, before all this bullshit decision coming out of CPUC. These people, folks, this is honor amongst the thieves. All these commissioners, they are getting paid by these companies that are running havoc in our cities. Why is San Francisco the only city in the United States of America that has allowed this technology to actually endanger the lives of the residents? There is a reason. We vote these people. We vote these corrupt individuals to take over our lives, take over the government with no consequences. Why is it that only San Francisco, this happens in San Francisco? Do I dare say shame on those who voted these individuals to office? Shame on those who closed their eyes and let this thing keep going on and on and on. We all know about the dangers of these cars. We've seen incidents after incidents. But let's talk about the corrupt officials that make this happen. We're living in a one-party system. Democrats, Republicans, they vote for the same crap. They vote for the pillars of society. Who are the pillars of society? The Googles, the Facebooks, the billionaires who are making so much money that are totally disassociated with the communities that they are endangering. So we already know about the dangers of these cars. We already know about what is not right, but what do we do now? We need to take our fight to the politicians that actually make this happen. We need to demonstrate in front of their offices. We need to bring more people into the movement. We need to raise this. We need to stop. Woo! We need to stop voting for these schmucks. We need to stop voting for these schmucks. Shame on them. And shame on the people who vote these schmucks to office.
Viva Workers' Party!
Yes! Viva Workers' Party! Viva Green Party! Thank you.
Thank you. So, one of the things that we have is artistic expression. San Francisco used to be an artist haven until gentrification drove a lot of artists out of San Francisco. But there is one artist here today and his team, Andy Knight, who's been covering the effect of AI on the people of California, the people of the world. So welcome, Andy Knight. He's going to say a few words. He's working here on his production. So Andrew Kong Knight. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, thanks, man. All right. Woo! Yay, artist. Yeah, my name is Andrew Kong Knight, and I'm not affiliated with any company. I'm not being paid by anybody. It's just that I love the city. I went to the San Francisco Art Institute, which is no longer operating, and it kind of reflects exactly what we're talking about, big business. It's the big business art school that's taken up all the residencies around the city. It's kind of taken over the city that remains. And as an artist through history, we are always the we try to tell the truth. We try to show what is happening. And I did this painting here for a tribute for a guy I live in the East Bay. Again, I lived in San Francisco. Love the city. I feel very connected to the city. But I live near Fremont. My hometown is Hayward. I'm from Hayward. I taught high school for 25 years in Hayward, and this guy was killed by autopilot. And so, you know, there are dangers to this new technology. I'm not anti-technology. I know this is the future of driving is going to be AI, but it's clear that if the fire chief of San Francisco is saying that it's dangerous and something's catastrophic is going to happen, that's where I came involved with doing these paintings. And I have, I'd love to show you this one over here as well. If you guys, gentlemen, could grab that one, I think it's ready to go. Somebody gonna grab it, or I'll grab it. And this one's a tribute. I did it as my childhood dog, and I thought, what would I feel if a taxi robot killed my dog? And so you can bring it over here, put it in front here. And so I did my childhood dog, and this is my tribute to the person that lost their dog to a Waymo car. And of course, they probably won't do any investigation. I did a chalk line around it like it's a crime scene. But because it's a dog, they probably won't investigate. But I'm here, and I know a lot of you guys are here to warn that it could be a person next, you know? And someone was injured just recently, and it's ironic that they made the vote, and like a few days later, a fire engine was in an accident with, it was Cruise, right? Was it a Cruise vehicle, and someone was injured? So is it that someone has to die? So it's not going to be a dog, next going to be a person, and then they finally go, oh, okay, well, we should probably think about the safety, right? But we're here to say, and I'm here to say, that we're warning from we're just not making this up. It's the fire chief of San Francisco saying these things are dangerous. Oh, speaking of which, watch out, guys, because here comes one down the street. Hey, watch out, buddy. This got the robot car, man. You never know what's going to happen. There they are. So let's turn this around. I want to show you my other painting. Turn it around. So a lot of these speakers were saying it's politics, right? It's got to be politics. So I'm calling out right now, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, I know you got $10 million from Google. Is that it? The money's so good that you're not listening to the fire chief? The mayor of San Francisco, what's going on? The fire chief of the city says something's catastrophic is going to happen. So I've tried to paint it as clear as I could here. And I have the fire people, fire personnel, trying to put out the fire, but look who's blocking it. It's these AI taxis that are blocking the water from saving. I mean, I'm trying to illustrate this as clear as I can. So here's a mom and her baby. Here is policemen back to back. Policemen don't like it. They said they need a switch to shut these things out. So I'm asking Waymo crews, put a device that you can shut these things out, that we don't have to break the window to deal with this, okay? So we understand we're not anti-tech. When cars were new, when it was a horse and carriage, going to cars, we had to have rules of the road, right? So we have the police back to back with the skateboarder. So the people in the street. Oh, bring the mic. This mic? Oh, okay. What? This one? This one? Oh, this mic. Just stay here? Okay. And then we got the San Francisco taxi cab. The Lyft workers. The Uber workers. So it's always, you know, I've been painting for, I went to the Art Institute, I graduated here in San Francisco in '86. I've been doing this all my life. And the people at the top here, this is the guy that Newsom appointed. He shouldn't vote for this. It was a 3-to-1 vote. If it could have been even vote, but he's allowed to vote. He won't recuse himself from voting, but he was the Cruz lawyer for 3 years that's voting whether to have Cruz on the street. I am showing that they're behind the curtain here. They're poking their heads out, and you can see what's behind this. Why is it that these guys are releasing these and turning a blind eye? Why is the mayor turning a blind eye? Why, Gavin Newsom, are you turning a blind eye to this? Well, there it is. I'm gluing some money on right now. There it is in their hand. I don't know what that is. So this is the clearest picture. Every time I come to a rally, I keep working on it and trying to hone in to get it as clear as I can. I painted it as clear as I could, and I feel the responsibility as an artist to show it, to say it, and I thank everybody here for standing up for safety for each other.
Small things. I think that they have raised the heat on this, starting with leaving scooters and electric bicycles all over the city, which was kind of annoying, but people use them. It's an income stream, probably from Muni. I'm not sure. I haven't traced the money yet. But then it goes up. Muni actually enabled Uber and Lyft to use Muni lanes where cars can't travel. So people who use public transit and cars have less space. And now it's Robo Taxis. So the heat has been, it started low and it seemed benign, but it keeps increasing. I think Muni may be part of this problem. Again, I don't know what funds they get for permitting these cabs, but I think it would be really interesting to trace all the pots of money to the politicians, but also to the agencies that haven't spoken out.